Today I'm going to have a crack at fixing this exhaust on my Suzuki Quad Runner. The exhaust has got minor external damage that's visible, but there's a hole here and there's another large hole underneath there, and so I'm going to put a whole new end plate in the exhaust. Bike's in need of a birthday. The dirt that gets up in and under the engine, I'm going to give it a pressure wash off. I'm going to remove the rear muffler. I've got all this dirt down the side of the engine. There must be some sort of leak there, but I'm just going to pressure wash again to just get a bit of a clean start on it. Yeah, hopefully all this looks a bit prettier when it's had a pressure wash. I'm fixing this hole here, and there's a larger hole in the bottom of the exhaust. So after a bit of a pressure wash, this recoil starter side, which was just covered in grease and black back here, there's still a bit there that I missed. I had the wheel on and should have taken it off probably to get in a bit closer, but yeah, a lot of that crap's been blasted out of the under tray. Much nicer for me to begin this exhaust work. I want to remove this muffler which is attached to the tailpipe, which needs repairing. That muffler input there, or intake there, is behind this chrome shield here, which has a fixing here, a fixing in the end there, and a fixing on the top there, which often get pretty corroded and delicate to get out. Then the muffler itself has a 12mm bolt, or it's an M8 bolt with a 12mm head down here that also doubles as a bracket for this end plate, and there's a bolt similar in the other side. Under this lump here is where the front pipe and the muffler pipe join, and it'll be interesting whether we can get that apart easily without breaking bits. This bolt came out okay. The one that was down through the join between the rear cover and here was seized. I applied heat to the nut, or the bolt head, like that up here, and got it red hot. Had a shield in behind there to protect the airbox and the rubber, just a piece of tin, and I had another piece of tin in this side to protect this rubber. And once that got red hot, I got it to move, so it came out without stripping the retention nut. And then the next one that wasn't looking like moving was this bolt that clamps the muffler to the front pipe. It's got a welded on nut on the bottom there. Yeah, that nut there is welded on. I wasn't holding out a lot of hope for it to move, but I sprayed it with CRC, fired a torch, the MAP gas is what I'm using, in and heated that nut to red hot, and then was able to get the 12mm spanner on the top to crack that one open. Efforts to get this muffler off didn't stop there. The bolts down there were easy enough. The one through there, that came out. But then when I went to pull, I also took plastic carry basket off the top there and the heat shield that's underneath it, just to get a better view of what I was doing. I was finding that the muffler wouldn't just pull out the rear directly, because that black bracket on the bottom of the muffler there, which came from the casting there, was hitting this boss here when you tried to just pull it straight back. There's no problem with the one on the other side because that bracket is further forward and away from here. But to get that to come off at the join here, this side needed to be lifted. This joint, or the front pipe, wasn't allowing it to be lifted. So I ended up using a pry bar to angle it out. Anyway, now at this point I've got the muffler released and I can remove it from the bike. So I removed the plug from there, a bit of heat, a bit of CRC, working it backwards and forwards, and it came out. So the damage under here comes this far. I don't know what I'll find but I've scribed a line, perpendicular, radial, I don't know how you describe that, but square as best as I can make it by putting a piece of tape around it and scribing against the tape. I'll cut it there and see what I find. After cutting that off, there's a piece of tube in the centre there, maybe about 30mm diameter. I'll get the lengths and things done for those who are interested. This piece surprised me. It's, I think, different to the one I worked on. There was like a propeller shaped piece in the end there. This is all spark arrestor stuff that I'm looking at. There's a partition there, just 20mm in, just less than 20mm in from my cut there, and there's a propeller in there, 135mm in. Gases are going to come through the centre here. Some of them are going to go straight down the tube, while I've got the tape in there, nearly 80mm long. It's all about the spark arrestor. The message on the side of the pipe talks about how this spark arrestor is approved by US Forestry. It's an important thing to have. Some people have been replacing their tailpipes on their mufflers with Coke cans and things. It would sound terribly tinny. These holes in this exhaust are the main reasons I'm repairing it, because it just takes the pop and back pressure away from the engine and changes the sound completely. A restoration at this stage before it gets worse is what I'm about to do. I'm going to use this old bit of scrap metal that I machined out to about the diameter of the end cap, and then an old bearing that I've got, which is again about the same size as the inside of the end cap, fits in there, and I should be able to, in the press, put a lip on the end of the end cap. Here's some scrap steel I've found. That piece of sheet there, I've marked off a 70mm strip, which is the width of this. So my end cap is starting to take shape. It's formed up in there, and now it's very close to the right diameter, slightly smaller than the outside diameter of that, so it's good size wise. I've now got to open up the centre hole to a larger size. I don't know how I'm going to do that because my lathe's busted at the moment. Got to get it up to around 30mm. I've got to find a bit of pipe or use that piece. This is my form tool for rolling the piece of tube for the outer side of the exhaust. There's a saw cut in here. My piece of material, put a fold in the end of it. It will fit into that groove, and I'll wrap it around. This is about a 2-inch. I think it's about 3 inches. It's got a form, but it'll spring out back to 3 inches. So I'll do that. So I've wrapped that steel around that former. It will spring back out to the sort of 3-inch diameter it needs to be, and it can be tacked into place and the angle on the end cut off. I'm about to weld this. There's a series of tacks initially, and I'll rotate it in the vise and pinch it together and tack where it's pinched properly together. Well, I've tacked that end plate into my tube. A series of tacks around the outside there help hold the outer, the end plate becomes formwork as you fold the outer around. The outer's already got a bit of a bend in it, but it doesn't sit, so a series of clamping and tacking, and then as the joint gets closer, run the angle grinder down the joint and put a few tacks on that. Now, pretty pleased with the match up of diameters there between the original muffler and the new piece. So just need to move on from there. I by this stage normally have punched a bigger hole through there, but I thought I'd do it a bit different this time. So that's my roughed out hole in the end of this exhaust. I probably should have made that before I welded it into this tube, because it's got in the way of things. I've had to sort of die grind around here, knocking off some of the high spots on the tacks. But that's the punch I'm going to use, and I'm going to punch it from the inside out to into that bearing, which should give enough clearance around it for the 32mm pipe. And the 32mm pipe, I found a piece in the scrap which is perfect. I was struggling for a while to find that, but that just seemed to be perfect. That's my hole in the end. You can see, looking down in there, it's a radiused corner and a raised section there, which neatly fits the 32mm, or in bananas, I think it's 1.25 inches. Ralphie calls them bananas. That's raised up nicely. It'll create a little flange for help with the welding. Well, it's starting to look like a new end on my exhaust. I haven't got the plug in the bottom. I'm going to cut that out of the old piece next, and find a good spot for it on this new one. Just to be complete, I don't know that it ever gets undone by anybody, but I might just do it for the hell of it. I've cut this out of the base of the original. That's the bung for it. I'm going to clean that up and weld it on here. So that's tacked on. I think it's time to tack the whole tailpipe on now. I've linished this surface around here where the weld goes, because I think it looks like the surface of the rest of this. I buffed a bit off the inside there too, and I'm guessing that might be galvanised. I want a bare steel clean surface around here to weld to. That's the diffuser at the back of the muffler, which swirls the exhaust gases around this pipe, probably throwing any sparks to the outside, and then it being caught behind this baffle before they find their way out the exhaust pipe. So that's how the spark arrestor works. All this centre pipe that we're seeing here was missing completely on the 90 bike that I repaired the muffler on. I didn't know what it was like inside there. That diffuser propeller, I call it, down the bottom there was in place, but this larger inner pipe and that baffle there was missing, and I fabricated something that looked like an end plate that worked all right. Well, I thought I'd show you this before I take the grinder to it. It's a dog's breakfast. Interesting how many holes are exposed after I'm going to use a flapper wheel in the angle grinder. See how much I can knock off of that rubbish, warts and all. I've been frigging around trying to clean up my welds. It's a point where you just got to say enough's enough. I'm going to put a bit of paint on that now. So it's done. Fairly happy with it. I wish I could weld better. Bit of paint. Be going back on the bike when that's dry. That's the muffler fitted back. I put a bit of spray paint on that rear cover. I used a bit of anti-seize on the bolts, so it might be a bit easier next time. That's looking pretty good. This is down from the top before I put the storage box and heat shield on. In from the rear, obviously there's no longer a hole in that end cover or underneath, so I think that's a pretty good job. This is mainly to hear what it sounds like. It's sounds good to me. Nobody watches my videos to the end. If you do, get out to your shed and have some fun. Maybe like and subscribe as well.